the title of my talk today is Your Total Eclipse Playlist, and this is music inspired by the total eclipse of the sun. So before you can understand why composers wrote the music they did, you need to understand a total eclipse itself. And the timing of this talk is because we are very fortunate to have a total eclipse in Texas on April 8th, 2024. And it's unfortunately not in Houston. You need to travel to the Hill Country or Uvalde or Dallas area to see the total eclipse in Texas. And I'll explain why that's very important to do and why you want to see a total eclipse and see why these composers were inspired by it. So first of all, a total eclipse is one of the most phenomenal spectacles in nature. This is similar to the photo I saw in my 5th grade science textbook. And once I saw that, I decided that at some point in my life, I needed to see a total solar eclipse. I heard all the stars come out. But when I saw my first eclipse, I found out that it didn't look anything like the photos I had seen. You don't get all the stars out because you have more of a deep dusk. You get the brightest stars and brightest planets, but it was far more beautiful than anything I had seen in pictures. So this photo was taken by an eclipse chaser, Byron Braswell, at Clifton Beach in Australia on November 14th, 2012. And photographs do not do it justice because either they overexpose the corona and then you miss what's going on in what we call the inner corona, which also has some beautiful effects that you can see with your naked eye, or you see the inner corona and you don't see the outer corona. So the photos are getting more sophisticated, but I want to urge you not to make your decision based on photos or video. The actual experience is far better. So why are total solar eclipses so special? Well, they're a sort of form of miracle, maybe one of the most miraculous things that happen in nature, not only because it's so beautiful, but because of why it happens. So Earth has only one moon. There are many planets that have more moons than one, but we have exactly one moon. And it's 400 times smaller than the sun, but it also, by coincidence, is 400 times closer to us. And what that means is that at this time in Earth history, when the moon crosses exactly in front of the sun, it exactly hides the photosphere, the bright yellow part of the sun, and only at that time can we reveal the much fainter corona. And why it happens, and why it doesn't happen every month, is that the moon's orbit around the Earth is inclined about 5 degrees to the Earth's orbit around the sun. So that means that most months at full moon, the moon's a little too high to have the Earth's shadow fall under it, or too low to have the Earth's shadow fall onto it. And at new moon, usually the moon is, again, lower or higher than the sun and completely misses it. But there are times when the orbits cross, and if the sun, moon, and Earth coincide at those times, then you can get either a total lunar eclipse or total solar eclipse. And that lineup has to be even more perfect for a total solar eclipse. So here you can see the times at the top and bottom of this picture when it's possible to have total eclipses. Now, the reason we don't always have a total eclipse that completely covers the sun is because the apparent size of the sun varies because the Earth's orbit is not circular, it's elliptical. So sometimes the sun appears a little farther away from us and a little smaller, and sometimes it's closer to us and appears a little bigger in the sky. And the same thing happens to an even greater extent with the moon. Sometimes we're farther away from it, and sometimes we're closer to it. When people talk about a full moon that's a supermoon, all that means it's a full moon when the moon is also especially close to us. So it's an apparently larger full moon. So because of this variation in distance, you can have several different kinds of eclipses. At the top in the diagram, the moon and the sun are closer to the same apparent size, and the moon's just enough bigger to completely block out the sun's light. And that's the time you can have a total eclipse. We also recently had what's called an annular eclipse in Texas, and the moon and the sun are lined up perfectly, but the moon's apparent size is just a little bit too small to cover it. So that's what you see at the bottom of this diagram. And this is also can be very beautiful. This is a photo by one of the Houston Astronomical Society members, Joe Dellinger, of a beautiful sunset annular eclipse, which happened in 2012. And annular eclipse comes from the word annulus or ring. So this is a sort of ring of fire, but you're still seeing the sun's photosphere and you cannot see the corona. So it's really a specialized partial eclipse. Now, when you have a total eclipse of the sun, the umbra or the main part of the shadow is very narrow, and that's the only time you can see all the effects of a total eclipse. So as you can see in the diagram of the Earth, there's just this narrow black line across the Earth, and you must be in that black line to see a total eclipse. Being a tiny bit outside of it, no good. You will see from the video I'm going to show you that you have a completely different animal. Also beautiful, but you miss the absolutely spectacular effects of a total eclipse. As you can see in the diagram, there's some lighter gray, which covers a lot more of the Earth, and all of those people have a partial eclipse at the time. So there's also something called a hybrid eclipse, when the sun and the moon's apparent distances or apparent size is so close that it actually matters where you are on the Earth's curvature, whether you're getting a total eclipse or an annular eclipse, as you can see in the bottom diagram. And we just had one of those too. I was in Australia where it was total, but when you have them so close in shape, then you have by necessity a shorter totality. So about the longest totality you can have with what's called a hybrid eclipse, when there's both annular at the edges of the path and total in the middle of the path, is only about 1 minute and 49 seconds at the very longest. Why would you want to see a short eclipse? Well, what happens is that as the moon crosses across the sun, you also are able to see naked eye all the prominences on the edge. They look to me sometimes like red or pink laser pointers pointing at you, or arcs along the sun. And in a longer eclipse, like we're going to have in Texas, those will appear sequentially, but in a shorter eclipse, you see them all at once. So this is a photograph showing the beautiful inner corona, but you need to know that with your naked eye, you're seeing both this and the outer corona at the same time, which is very hard to show in photographs. So on April 20th of this year, we had a hybrid eclipse in Western Australia and Indonesia. Sorry, the previous year, it's now 2024. And October 14th, we had an annual eclipse in the US, which you could see in Texas if you were in Corpus Christi or San Antonio, or we had about 90% eclipse in Houston. And now we have the total coming, goes from Mexico through central Texas and Dallas and all the way up into Maine and Canada. But we are very fortunate in Texas because we have the best weather prospects in the United States. So this just shows what the outer corona looked like in Australia. You may see a little hint of red in this photograph. What I saw naked eye looked like incredibly bright red laser pointers pointed at me on the left side of the sun. The outer corona is reasonably close to what the naked eye saw. It was a very spiky corona. Every corona is different. So if you see more than one eclipse, it's sort of like a kaleidoscope. Each one looks different. And what the photograph doesn't show is the color of the sky. So on the left is just a point and shoot with a cell phone. Obviously, it gets nowhere close to what I was actually seeing. And this was maybe the first picture taken from space. It was a Japanese satellite that was orbiting the moon, and you can see the little black scar on the Earth, which was the shadow of the moon's the moon shadow on the Earth. So Texas got both an annular eclipse, and we're about to get a total eclipse. There is a wonderful interactive Google map, websites later on that you'll be able to see. And let me get rid of this little rectangle here. And that you'll be able to use. You can actually blow up you can zoom in, actually put a pointer on an individual house and get all the data you need for what time the eclipse will be, where the sun is in the sky, what compass direction, and what time everything starts and stops for you. So this is the statistical cloud chances along the eclipse path in 2024. Texas is over here. The best prospects are in Mexico, and it gets worse and worse as you get into the northern United States, although there are some dips where it's a little bit better. This is the percent cloudiness. In Texas, I would say you have about a 65% chance of seeing it normally. However, I looked up what happens since we have an El Nino. And along the entire path, Texas is the only place that benefits from an El Nino, which we will continue into 2024. That actually makes Texas 15 to 20% better and lower clouds than it ordinarily would be. So Texas has an excellent chance of seeing this eclipse, even in the hill country in April. If you do go to see the eclipse, you don't need eclipse glasses for totality, but you always need them for any partial phases. Even a tiny bit of sun, if you were to look at it directly for too long, can hurt your eyes. So I think the reason why eclipses are considered so dangerous is that when the sun gets mostly covered up, I wouldn't call it comfortable, but it gets a lot more comfortable to look at the sun. And people have been known to stare at it and then suffer eye damage, either a blind spot in the middle of their vision. I have a friend whose father did that when he was a kid and had a blind spot in his vision for the rest of his life, or you could actually go completely blind. So even a little bit of sun's photosphere is dangerous to look at. So now is the time to buy eclipse glasses or to find them maybe given out by a local museum. RainbowSymphony.com is my favorite place to find them. There's also something called Norm Sperling's 8-second law. I'm glad I heard this talk before I saw too many eclipses. He says every eclipse seems like it's 8 seconds long, so time compresses, but he has a theory for how to combat that. He says, don't only look at the corona. And in this coming eclipse, we have a long time of totality if you're even reasonably close to the center line. So you will have time to look at the sun, look in binoculars, take a quick picture, look around at all the sunset colors. And he was right. I did that for a 2-minute eclipse, and it seemed longer than a 4-minute eclipse when all I did was look at totality, and that was all I did. His theory is that when you have one view, your memory compresses it into a short time. So if you do see this eclipse, do several things during totality, and you'll feel the entire duration of the eclipse. So what is it like to see a total eclipse? This is the best video I've found as far as showing you what the experience of an eclipse is like. I should call this video what it is like to see a total eclipse with a whole bunch of young adults who have never seen one before.
It's August 21st, 2017, the day of the total solar eclipse. I'm in Madras, Oregon. The skies are clear. This is my sky tracker. It's meant to move the camera with the sky, so it sort of compensates for the Earth's rotation. That should help me keep the sun in shot as the eclipse is taking place. We have first contact. This is C1. You can just see the moon entering on the top right side. We are 17 minutes out from totality, and I think the light is starting to change. I think it's getting noticeably dimmer. There's a bit of like a cold wind coming in from this side. Can you guys feel it? It's getting kind of cool, and it's getting darker. I'm really excited. Now that the sun is about 90% covered, I'm seeing much sharper shadows. Normally shadows, they're a little bit fuzzy because the light from the sun is coming from a whole bunch of locations, but now because it's coming from basically one little sliver of the sun, the shadows are all getting very, very sharp.
So if you stay in Houston, that's as far as you're going to get.
Oh my God.
Oh, so weird.
My God. Ah!
Guys, look around. Just try looking around.
This is insane right now. Oh, this is just unbelievable. What?
Oh my
God! What is happening? This is absolutely insane.
There's the beads.
I feel like it's hard to breathe. Oh Oh my god. This is so totally creepy.
Oh my god, the sun!
Oh my goodness. This feels so weird.
Look at the sunrise, Derek! It's at every direction!
Oh my goodness. There's like sunset, sunrise, every direction. People are going nuts. This I did not expect. I don't know what I expected, but
Oh my god!
this
Look
just
at the
looks so wrong. You can see these prominences, the solar corona coming out, the top left and right and the bottom. I can see Venus directly above me.
You can see the stars.
Oh,
my
what? What is this? What? I just don't even know. We are inside totality. I am kind of speechless. It is just unreal right now. Isn't it? It's totally nuts. What?
Look, the hole in the sky. But it's so dark. 360 sunsets.
Our excitement that the sun is back.
So as you can see, even with a tiny bit of sun coming out, it was already much lighter. So that comes about as close as I've seen as a video can come to the experience of a total eclipse. It is still more beautiful than that. I always say that the sound of people reacting to the eclipse is the most accurate depiction if you've never seen one. So let's get to some of the music now that's been inspired by eclipses. This first one is actually a depiction of a lunar eclipse. It was by the English composer Henry Purcell. It was composed on the occasion of an ode on the assembly of the nobility and gentry of the city and county of York at the anniversary feast, March the 27th, 1690, set to music by Mr. Henry Purcell, one of the finest compositions he ever made. It is truly beautiful. That comment is by Thomas Durfee, the librettist. Let's listen to a bit of it. So I'm going to start it, but I'm going to move it to when the text starts. And I think I had the text here. Oh yes, here's the text. So this is actually depicting a lunar eclipse, although it almost sounds like a solar eclipse to me. But the moon is the queen of night. So when the glittering queen of night with black eclipse is shadowed o'er, the globe that swells with sullen pride, her dazzling charms to hide, does but a little time abide, and then each ray is brighter than before. So actually, when you have a total solar eclipse, there's usually lunar eclipses a couple weeks before of some sort and a couple weeks after, because the sun, moon, and earth are still roughly lined up. But of course, it has to be nighttime to see a lunar eclipse, so not all of the earth can see it. So here's a little bit of that music. And I'm going to move it to when the singer starts. So as you can see, the harmonies are exceptionally beautiful in this piece, and it continues along that way. Let me get my cat out of the way here. And so this is by a performance by Nicholas McGeegan, who is a Baroque conductor from England, and those are the instruments that were played at the time. The next piece is from Handel's opera, Samson, and he completed the entire opera only 6 weeks after he completed the Messiah. So it was completed on October 29th, 1741. And one of the more well-known arias from it is called Total Eclipse. Now you notice the sort of chiaroscuro between the darkness of the moon and the brightness of the corona. And in this case, this aria is actually depicting the blinding of Samson. So the text is total eclipse, no sun, no moon, all dark amidst the blaze of noon. Oh, glorious light, no cheering ray to glad my eyes with welcome day. Why thus deprived? Why prime decree? Sun, moon, and stars are dark to me. And so here's a little bit of that aria.
Total eclipse, no sun, no moon, all dark amidst the blaze of noon. Oh, glorious light, no cheering array to glad my eyes with welcome day. Total eclipse. No sun, no moon, all dark amidst the blaze of noon. Why thus deprived thy prime decree? Sun, moon, and stars are dark to me. Sun, moon, and stars, sun, moon, and stars are dark to me. Sun, moon, and stars, sun, moon, and stars are dark to me.
So I'll stop it there. To those of you who might be less familiar with opera from that period, the action happens in what we call the recitatives. That's like the ordinary conversation between the actors. And then they'll stop and sing an aria about something that's happened, their emotions about it. So this is an especially beautiful aria from Handel's Samson. Now, our next musical example is from Alexander Borodin's opera, Prince Igor. So Borodin was also a chemist and known for a Borodin reaction and some other achievements in chemistry. But one of his most famous pieces, the Polyvetzian Dances, comes from the opera Prince Igor. And that opera premiered on November 4th, 1890. And what I did not know is that early in the opera, it's an opera about battles, but it takes place during a solar eclipse. So In the prologue, the eclipse actually happens at the beginning of the opera. So here's some of the text. The stage direction: the sky darkens in a solar eclipse. All gaze at the sky in terror. Vladimir Golitsky says, "What does that mean? Look, the sunlight fades." And the people sing, "Oh, Prince, this is a divine omen." Vladimir Igorevich, and like the moon, the sun is crescent shaped, amazed by that. People, "Oh, Prince, this is a bad sign." And then there's complete darkness. The stars are shining in broad daylight. The earth is enveloped in a terrible darkness. Night has fallen. "Oh, Prince, abandon your plan. Do not go." Then daylight gradually breaks in again, and Prince Igor says, "This is a divine omen from our Lord. Whether for good or evil, we will see. None may evade his destiny." So in this production, you will actually see a total eclipse on stage. I'm going to start the video just so I can get it going, and then I'm going to go to the total eclipse. Right there.
Что это значит? Глядите, меркнет солнце след. И словно месяц на небе солнце стоит
Fortunately, I missed the corona. I'll stop it right there. That's pretty impressive. Another composer, John Tavener, wrote a piece called Total Eclipse. It does not actually have anything to do with total eclipses. It's about the conversion of St. Paul to Christianity. But of all the pieces I have, I think this is one of the most spectacular for the feelings and emotions and the awe of a total eclipse, and maybe the fright that people felt when they didn't know one was coming. So this is a 1999 piece. It has very interesting scoring, or that's the instruments, for Baroque orchestra, but it includes saxophone, Baroque timpani, 2 sets of chromatic timpani, 1 Baroque oboe, 1 Baroque trumpet, doubling modern trumpet, 1 Baroque trombone, Tibetan temple bowl, very large tam-tam, handbells, Baroque strings, boy treble solos, countertenor, tenor, and chorus. The music should be performed in a petrified ecstasy. I'm going to play just a bit of the beginning, but this is not actually about an eclipse, but I think it's wonderful music for an eclipse. This is actually depicting the crucifixion of Christ. So that's just a bit of the beginning. It's an amazing piece with all sorts of development in it. But the weirdness of the instruments and the otherworldliness, I think, are very appropriate for total eclipses because it's like something you never experience elsewhere in life. So now for something completely different.
I was walking in the wholesale flower district that day, and I passed by this place where this old Chinese man, he sometimes sells me weird and exotic cuttings. Cause he knows, you see, that strange plants are my hobby. He didn't have anything unusual there that day. So I was just about to, you know, walk on by. When suddenly, and without warning, there was this... It got very dark, and there was this strange humming sound, like something from another world. And when the light came back, this weird plant was just sitting there. Just, you know, stuck in, among the zinnias. I could have sworn it hadn't been there before, but the old Chinese man sold it to me anyways. For $1.95.
So for those of you who have not seen Little Shop of Horrors, Audrey 2 was so innocent, turns out to be a man-eating or blood-sucking plant later on, created by a total eclipse of the sun. Now, this is a really fascinating piece by an avant-garde Vietnamese group that's Hanoi-based in Hanoi, Vietnam, called Dai Lam Lin. And those are 3 names of some of the members of the band. It's called Solar Eclipse. They are a controversial band. It's hard to get the state to approve of some of their lyrics and also the avant-garde nature of their music. But the more I listen to it, the more I love it. This is actually depicting an emotional breakdown and darkness that comes into life. I'm gonna move a little bit ahead here. Their music is incredibly inventive and completely original, and it's a fascinating band out of Vietnam. Now we move for something to Pink Floyd's final track from the Dark Side of the Moon called Eclipse, which is almost exactly about the same thing. It's about how darkness falls into life. And in this live performance, you will see hints that they're depicting a solar eclipse on the screen behind them. It comes about halfway through.
Touch, all that you see, all that you taste, and all that you feel, and all that you love, all that you hate, all you mistrust, and all that you say, and all that you give, and all that you deal, and all that you buy, beg, borrow, or steal. All you create, all you destroy, and all that you do, and all that you say, and all that you eat, and everyone you meet, and all that you slice, and everyone you fight, all that is now, all that is gone, and all that's to come, everything.
And now we have a couple of pieces that are classical pieces which literally depict an eclipse. And this one is for violin and cello. I'm just going to play a little bit of it because it sounds kind of similar. But one of them represents the sun, one is the moon, and they dance toward each other and then converge and then dance away again. I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here. Okay, that gives you a flavor of that piece. But then I discovered a brand new piece that was posted only on January 3rd, a couple weeks ago on YouTube by someone named Adebi. And it's an amazing piece. So it's in 3 parts. I'm just going to play you my favorite part, but there's a couple minutes where you see an eclipse in your mind's eye, but you're not actually experiencing an eclipse yet. The most fascinating part to me is when the moon is beginning to approach the sun. He has several minutes where you're beginning to feel the impact that something momentous is about to happen. And then there's the eclipse itself, which is actually very quiet music of kind of a spatial quality. I want to play for you, especially the middle section where you are anticipating the eclipse as it's beginning to happen. So let me get that started. And that starts at 1 minute, 35 seconds. You find that. About here, this is right about here, soon after this. So with this low note, the actual eclipse starts, and that's also very beautiful music, but it's very quiet, which is the way I feel during a total solar eclipse. They're in total awe. I will invite you guys to find this entire piece. It's only 7 minutes on YouTube. It's beautiful all the way through. I'm going to end with just a couple of pictures. This is a wide field view of an eclipse and the shadow on the sky as it's receding by Joe Dellinger, one of our members in Hawaii in 1991. This was from my very first eclipse in Indonesia in 1983. It's the same length as the one in Texas if you're near the center line. It was 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And I now advise people to sketch an eclipse, that rather than necessarily photographing it. There will be people with fantastic equipment who will come out with the best photographs. But if you have the time, as I did in Indonesia, that's the corona I remember the best, the ones I've sketched, which I've done a couple times. And this was enough time to look at the eclipse naked eye, look around at all the darkness, use binoculars, and sketch it in some detail. And then when a composite photo, this uses a radial filter, so it gets more of the corona and at the best exposure, you still don't see all the bright red laser light prominences I saw. Those are depicted in these dark stretches. This looked like red light, these stretches that I drew in here. And as you can see with my naked eye, I saw this one went way out to here, had more definition. And so I saw even more naked eye than the photograph shows. If you wait for an eclipse to come to you, you may wait a very long time. Any one spot on the Earth has a total eclipse about once every 360 years. If you miss this one, the next one in the United States, which cuts through the center from west to east, is in 2044, another 20 years from now. Although you can travel to some upcoming eclipses, which I will mention. I don't think I have a slide on it. So there's one in Spain in 2026. There's one in Luxor, Egypt on the center line that's 6 minutes long, and also in the Red Sea. If we can get rid of our wars, that would be great. In 2027 and 2028, the central part of Australia and Sydney, Australia are right on the center line of a 3.5 minute eclipse. So I would urge you to get to the path in Texas if you can. I have a whole nother talk on how to do that on YouTube. Just search for my name. There's many other people giving advice. There's still Airbnbs out there. They're finally starting to come down in price. They were really price gouging for a while. But this path is so wide that even a few miles into the path, you're already getting to the 3 minute mark. And anything above even 2 minutes is enough to comfortably enjoy the eclipse. So the housing a little farther out from the center line is still pretty reasonable. And then you could drive as close in as you want. I strongly urge you not to try to go in and out that same day. The traffic jams will be terrible for those, especially from those who have to be back at work on Tuesday. If you can, try to leave the area the day after and try to get housing somewhere within the path or campsites. There are also some organized tours. I think the Museum of Natural Science may still have space. The Texas Star Party has a large venue that can house 500 people. But you might do better in Airbnb if you have several people, because the fee for each person can be something like $1,200 to $1,500 on a tour. And I'm just going to leave you with this photo of a woman in Ternate, Indonesia, on the roof of our hotel observing the eclipse, because I think it's my most beautiful person photo.